My name is Megan Cairns, and I am the director of the National Blueberry Festival down in South Haven. And I've also been sort of a self-student of creativity for years. And so last year I did a workshop on how to turn the creative process into a game that you can play with your team and your board and enjoy the benefits of new ideas and in a relaxed environment of playing a game. And so I'm going to be presenting on that. And then we'll jump in, hopefully, and hear from Burt, who is way up in the UP in Breakout County. And the reason the two of us were asked to present this year was because both of us had events that we were able to pull off even during the crazy year of COVID. And I know it has been a huge struggle for everybody. And so really big kudos to everyone who has been involved and has stayed strong and is still thinking about events after this devastating year. What happened was Burt ended up doing a whole new event that had never been tried before and was a huge success. And then we ended up just really getting creative and changing how we could do our National Blueberry Festival, which is usually a 4-day weekend with, huge concerts and all kinds of big events, a giant 5K, pie eating contest, you name it. So a lot of crowds and a lot of germs. And so we were trying to figure out how to be creative with that. So I'm going to share a little bit about what we got creative with, but my main goal is to show you the game so that you can come away from this with some really good ideas and really good tools, more so because we are doing not a workshop, but more of a presentation. I'm going to run you through the process, but I would love to come join your team sometime and actually play the game with you guys and really help see what we can come up with. So we are doing that fresh festival ideas. There we go. I would like to just credit these three authors, first of all, because as you can see, I'm not a guru at this. I'm not old enough, not enough gray hair yet to be that. So I have to say that a lot of this material I've pulled together from different concepts that have been in all three of these books. The Play by Stuart Brown, Rhyming with Orange by Don Perini, and Jane McGonigal's Super Better. Jane, we take the the game theory, turning creativity into a game, came from her book about turning life into a game. The creative process itself comes from Don Perini with Rhyming with Orange. So those are the bones of the process of creativity. And he was one of the first creative professors in the United States. And then Stuart Brown's book on play is becoming more popular as he looks at how play positively affects the brain and really changes how people think and just their wellness overall, and encourages you to live a playful life. And so all three of those are combined into this workshop. So here we go. So this is the game. As a board, you gotta imagine yourself as a little character on the board. We're gonna be starting over here with the mindset, the little brain. And the reason we do a game is because we're trying to take the stakes of coming up with ideas and being creative, trying to take those stakes down a little bit, because there's a lot of pressure, when you sit down to do a presentation, to sit down and think, okay, we got to change what we're doing, with our festival. I got to think of some new ideas with my event. And you sit down and you go like this, and you maybe have a pad of paper, and you just go to think, that is the worst way to be creative. However, everyone can be creative. There are not these strokes of genius that we're used to kind of thinking of, that you either are creative or you're not. Everyone can be, and it's partly because the typical personalities that we think of as not being creative are actually a massive part of the creative process. Because if you have someone you have an idea that's new but not useful, we've all had those people who just think of crazy ideas, and you're like, that's great, so not helpful. You don't have that middle person that's going, this could work, this could be helpful. And that's, not creativity. It isn't just a plethora of ideas. It's actually bringing something new and useful to the world. And so those critics that we get mad at the board meetings, they actually do have a role to play in this. So everyone is creative because there are so many personalities that are needed for an idea to go from what is the right idea anyway into fruition and into a actual product or event that you're doing. So taking the game mindset is hard for me personally because I'm always very results driven. And so I struggle to park my inner critic and to say, let's just have fun, let's just play the game and see what comes out of it instead of sort of demanding results from myself or my team. So this is hard, but I'm trying to work with that, park that inner critic, trust the process of the game. And let me talk just really quickly more about the 4 personalities. So we mentioned them sort of. You've got the person that sees the problems really well. They're usually kind of chaos makers, usually the ones that are late to the meetings because they've been talking to the person at the door. You often will know which one you are kind of as it goes. Then you have your people that are the idea people. They cannot stop but think of new ideas. And my dad is like this. And so every Saturday morning, he would just download all of his new ideas that he thought of that week. And so it can be very exhausting being with these people, but they're fantastic. And they obviously play a very crucial role in helping the synergy and the flow of the idea. It's time for any creative process. But then you have the person who can see the sort of critic, I call it. They can say, they're usually the ones that are like, that won't work. That won't work. That won't work. That might work, but how would you handle this? And they often get a bad rap, but they're really important because during the prototyping step of the process, you need that person that's going to help you filter out which ideas are worth pursuing, which ones match with our team. And then lastly, the person who's like the get it done personality, the one that is just like, I don't actually care what we do, just let's move forward, let's just do something. And all of these creative personalities come from Don Perini's studies and books. And so he's the one to go to for more on that and about how you fit in as the team. But so there we go. So we're just going to play the game. So we've done our mindset now from over here. We're going to the defining phase, the first step of our game. And the problem that we need to use here, it needs to be specific. So we need to go away from our big, I've got it in yellow there, sort of our big thing we're trying to tackle. We need to change how we do things for COVID. So we're going away from just that to get more specific. And a wonderful way to do that is to use the words, how might we, and what's stopping us. And you work, how might we up? So, draw a line and put on there, we need to change how we do things. Or better yet, if we can refine that to a little more specific, that'll be even better. And you work, how might we sort of upwards, and you work, what's stopping us downwards. So here's an example. We've already changed how might we to a more specific question. Oh, sorry. We need to change how we do things to a more specific question of we need to do smaller events. So there's something that has been a reality with this year. That was one of the challenges we at the Blueberry Festival were facing. So as we began to tackle this question, we're asking more specifically, how might we do multiple small events? How might we change our venues? Or, so I don't want to get too far ahead, but use these questions, how might we, with your desired result, and then what's stopping us from that desired result. And as you work through this, you'll be amazed at what ideas already come up. I don't know if you've got a specific thing in your mind already, but feel free to grab some paper and as we go through this, just work it out on your own, because just asking and redefining these questions will get you a lot further from our big question of we got to change how we do things. So you'll see. So here we go. So we're going to play with this idea. How might we need to do more small events. How might we have multiple small events of less than 100? Definition there. And what's stopping us from hosting these smaller events? And then, so we look at the how might we, and we just branch off some more specific questions. How might we, so we're coming off of multiple small events. How might we use the community as venue host? How might we use all the town's parks? How might we focus on our local assets, clubs, and our local entertainers? How might we run a ticketed event? That's a tough one. How might we lengthen our event over more days, spreading out the crowds? And how might we do it as an open house format or a static parade, something that you kind of come through slowly and spread outly, maybe with tickets? So already we've got a lot of different thoughts just by answering those questions. How might we? And again, everyone can do this. Everyone can be creative. You're answering some questions. Let's go to what's stopping us. So what's stopping us from hosting small events of less than 100? The popularity of an event. A lot of your events are like ours, very large and normally draw a huge crowd. And unfortunately, you've already locked in a ton of advertising for that is going to run. And so that can be problematic. The what's stopping us might also be the physical assets of being able to spread out your event. You know, maybe you only have so many tents and tables. You can't just spread them all around town because you still need those supplies, but now you're trying to spread it out over several venues. People's fear of COVID. That was a real thing about what's stopping us from hosting smaller events is the uncertainty of it. Our event was back in August, and so we had some advantage of people having been through the thick or through a lot of COVID already. It wasn't a really new, as scary thing, but a lot of our volunteers had to pull out. And so it's a real deal. And so you don't want to just ignore that aspect of the fears of coming out into any public space or shared space. Another one, what's stopping us? The logistics of monitoring the numbers and manpower. So the idea is just flow through those questions and just keep going. So we might take the popularity of the event and say, how might we make it less popular, or how might we change who comes? So you just keep playing with these until you start locking into a field or a sandbox area of thought that you can really jump on and play with to continue through the game. And it is just a game, so you can always go back and do another one. And it might change along the way. So here we go. So we're taking our pick. We're going to choose a few things that came out from the defining portion, the multiple small events in local parks hosted by local organizations under our umbrella. So we went from we need to change how we do things to this, how do we do multiple small events in local parks hosted by local organizations under our umbrella, just by going through that definition process of the game. Okay, the next step then of the game is going to be the brainstorming aspect. And so we have 2 brainstorming sessions, as you'll see, and I'm going to show you a couple of hacks. But first of all, as you go into the brainstorm, I'm sure you'll recognize these 2 characters. We have the Pixar's movie Ratatouille, where we have this creative cook who is a rat. That's the whole plot, is the problem, in case you haven't seen that. But what we're doing is going for that mindset and that flow of ideas that the rat portrays when he cooks. If you've ever seen it, he dances around the kitchen, there's music, and he tries this and he sniffs that and he turns this, he plays with the food and he adds, and there's this sort of beautiful energy of directed flow going into what he's doing. And so that's what we're going for the brainstorm. The food critic there as portrayed, and he is the best because everyone has that inner critic that looks about like that in our own selves, that's just saying you can't, or that won't work, or sometimes those are external critics. And so what you need to do for the brainstorming process is to park that critic. Right now, embrace the rat. I got to think of a better way to say that. But that mindset of let the flow of ideas and energy and playing and trial and error come out as you are doing this brainstorming aspect of your event. The critic will come later. So another hack that we have for brainstorming is to get moving. This comes from Stuart Brown's book. The hand has incredible connection to the brain. And so if you can get your hands moving and your whole body moving, you will be able to really bring forward ideas much more readily. I love to have baskets of something like this, little balls around. And so they're fantastic to just throw against the wall. You know, they're harmless, they're squishy, and they're great for offices because you can bounce them, you know, with very little technology damaged in that. Where I used to work in South Africa, we had a tennis racket that had a small soft ball like that, and it was the most popular item for coming up with ideas. We call it the racket of power because it would always bring out some new idea, but the point wasn't the racket, right? It was the physical movement that helps your brain get flowing. So get moving and play and move your body as you start to think through ideas. Yes, you'll look weird if you're in an office, but be a leader and just show people how to think better by doing this. All right. So another brainstorming hack as you're working through these ideas is going to be, Burt, we can hear you. I don't know if you want to have your mic on or not. It's totally fine. Up to me, totally up to you. But
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can. Yep.
Okay.
So we're just talking about the brainstorming element of the game here. All right, so the second hack is to roll a dice and match it up with these questions. I've got a big dice like this that you can get at any sort of teacher store or Amazon Prime, and I roll it and it asks you various questions that you're not necessarily ready or comfortable to answer. You can read some of them there. How would a 9-year-old handle this? If you were in a video game, how would your character, what would they do in the character? What would your favorite cartoon character be? And so this is just I know it sounds crazy, but it's a fantastic way to get you to rethink what you're looking at and just create, make connections that are new and different than you are maybe expecting. So let's take our scenario of what we were going for. You see here. So when I just did this for fun, these are the brainstorm ideas that came out of that. How can we do multiple events in parks hosted by local organizations? And you can see them and read them, have the parks run, like here we go, our town players, have them do what they're good at and run little workshops for that for kids, get them to pay in a little to help cover costs, use the clubs to do what they normally do. Sponsors can, brand the park for the day. So here they are. Why I have this one with the picnic, have a picnic where you're not normally allowed to picnic. This one was a tangent. So this one was a one that came out of the initial doesn't exactly. So moving then. Okay, so Burt, can you mute your microphone because I can hear myself through it?
Not a problem.
Thank you. So I'm guessing we're all getting that. You only need to hear it once. Once is enough. Thank you, Burt. So we've moved on now through the 2 brainstorming hacks, and we're going into the straining element of our creative process game. And so the best way, a way to strain things is the what, how, and why. Does this match the action? Does this match your natural, your team's what they're able to do? Does it match what you're often going for? Does it, allow you to, is it something that makes sense with your culture and with the community? You'll see that very strongly in Burt's presentation, how well they went through this process and were, without even knowing about the game, but really followed well the straining and really got a very genuine event out of it that the community and tourists loved. The how is a matter of resources. It is, do we have the finances for this? Do we have the manpower for this? It's a very real thing. Do we have the, in our case right now, do we have the extra sanitation for COVID for this? What is this going to take from us? Doing a ticketed event is really difficult because we don't often have that type of security and manpower or the desire to just say, sorry, we're full, But the real key is this match of value. If you are watching this later, or you can, jump out, this bonus video here by Simon Sinek has the golden circle, which is really talks about why it's so important to know why you do what you do and to have those values matched, because our decision-making section of the brain happens in that gut feeling and that point of belief, the belief center. And so you match already what you believe and what you don't. And if you are aligned with, such a thing, and then you sort of reason your way to the choice and the action of that. So if you're doing an event, you want to make sure that it matches up with your group's values, that it matches up with the belief centers, as much as you can get in your community as well, to really hit on, whether it's having fun for families or providing a break for moms and dads. that was a really big focus we took at the Blueberry Festival, was actually a local event to provide a break for mom and dad, something fun that they could do at home or in a small, safe setting. And so that's what shaped all of our choices of what events we were able to put energy towards and not, besides the rules themselves for COVID. But so that's really important. So plus go look at Simon Sinek's Golden Circle, very great talk. And he's really a fascinating person to listen to. So you're going to run your ideas, right? You're going to score them. Just take them real. This is the game. Put it in a score of 1, no, 2, maybe 3, yes, and run it through and see the values. So for the ideas that we came up with the table, with the having events at parks, I'm putting those that matches our action very well. It matches our resources well because it's using a lot of organizations. Actually, it is actually tricky. I'm going to take 1 point off of that because it is using organizations, which leaves our resources kind of out of our control. So I'm going to give that a 2 actually, because it's such a widespread dependence on others. And then it does match our values. So that score is basically an 8 out of 9. The picnic idea of having a picnic where you're not normally allowed to picnic actually scores a bit higher, because it matches our resources very well because we have a ton of tables and we have access to things, and we have a ability to do that. And hang on, I just need to check the next slide here. Okay, so what I didn't say was I took that idea for picnicking beyond just picnic where you're not allowed to picnic to say, let's picnic on the pier. So again, we're just playing a game here. So let's picnic on the pier. So that's the more specific idea we're running through this, I should say. So that matches up action, resources, and values, all 3 out of 3. So that's actually a slightly higher score. And that's the one we're going to jump into now, an unexpected turn of events here. All right, so we go through the training process. Now we're going to do prototyping. I know this is frustrating. This is where a lot of us want to stop because we're ready to go. We've got a great idea, and we want to just, make it happen. But this really makes the difference between a ready to go event and one that is a bit messy. So you want to have the mess here in the office. You want to think through and engage with this idea in a practical, tangible way before you just launch it. So if you've got people that you can talk to about it, you can run it by a teen group if it's a teen event, or run it by a couple 6-year-olds. Do something to engage with that and begin to say, okay, how would this actually work? What are the words I'm going to use if I'm writing a proposal? What is the message I'm going to send to the newspaper? How would this actually look? And so just build it, sketch it, write it, take the time. That takes, half an hour, a little more if you're really going wild for feedback, but take the time to play the game, trust the process, and engage with this. So as we played with this picnic idea on the pier, I wrote a little newspaper article announcing a socially distanced, never seen before event where we're putting up picnic tables on the pier. $100 per table, fill it with up to 6 people. You can get lunch to go. So that was something I hadn't thought about before I started prototyping. Where does the food come from? You can bring it, or you can get some from our partners. There's another sponsor idea. And register online, and you got a special edition picnic tablecloth. That took me a while to say. So there we go, just playing around, right? Just experience your idea physically in some way. Prototyping number 2, and you'll see in Burt's example, they did really good thinking through this critical mindset and the concerns. How do we make this work? What do we stop? What could stop us, and how do we get ahead of that? We're almost there. The game is almost over. Don't you worry. But now is the time to let that critic shine. Let that guy out. Let him write his reviews. Let him think it through. There are some really, let me see if I put those on here. Nope. there are some great disaster scenarios you can think through. So for example, take that person on the team. What are they that always says something? And the Debbie Downer, what do they say? How can you circumvent that? What might the city officials say? What would be their concerns? How do you handle this if no one comes? How do you handle this if tons of people come? How do you handle this if you end up with bad weather? Just run through every reason it won't work and see if it still can. Some ideas will fall apart, others will stay strong. So allow that critic to shine and your idea to rise above, or to go back to the what's stopping us, how might we, defining stage. The biggest critique of the peer picnic is, of course, the water. And I don't know if any of you know, but in keeping track, South Haven has a record high water, as many of the Great Lakes towns do right now. But that would be a very serious concern about having a picnic on the pier. And that's where we get a little stiff on the idea. So we'd have to have some backup venues, and they should be just as cool, as maybe a rooftop or a bridge, something that would be as unique or very close to, so that it would still be a lot of fun. But there we go, circumvent. So by this time then, you've got, a really thorough and great proposal ready for your team. It's only been an hour or two because you've just been playing the game. And the last part is you need to know what it means to win. Burt's team had a great, clear vision of what they needed, what this meant for this to be a success. And that really helped drive their decisions along the way, because they knew what they were going for, and they knew what they believed in and wanted out of the event, which is so important. And a lot of time your team doesn't know what a win is. So take the second to define what success is. Maybe it's amount of people, maybe it's just pulling it off, maybe it's the volunteers being safe and having fun. Just take a second to define that win. But because we're playing a game, I have a little secret for you. You've already won. Yay! Because we made it all the way through to the final spot on the board. And it is, after all, just a game. We're just playing around with ideas. So there's no pressure, right? So there we go. So I've got a chance for questions, but I think what we're going to do is slide into Burt's presentation so that he can sort of show you some of these real life moments of how this process worked. Now, we didn't know each other when he was making this decision, so it's not to a T the game, which is totally fine. He's got a great creative mind and really pulled off a brand new event. And so we'll let him do his part. Let me stop sharing so you can get up here. And please welcome Burt Mason.
Hello, everyone. My name's Burt Mason, and I'm with the Breakout County Chamber of Commerce. So as Megan said, we didn't have a lot of time to work on this together, but I will try to pull this together. Whereas as I'm going through it, Megan can jump in and say, "Hey, here's what we were talking about in my presentation. Here's how it worked in Burt's event." So this development of a new event during the summer of COVID, that's what we were worried about. So let's get started here. You can see, everybody can see. Megan, you can see okay, right?
Yes, yep.
Okay, so just a little bit about Breakout County. We're in the Upper Peninsula. You can see in the map up in the upper right-hand corner there. We're in the Upper Peninsula, kind of in the western central UP in the northern part. It's a little difficult to get people to come all the way up here. We're a long ways from anywhere. Population is only about 9,000 people. Our land area is about the size of Oakland County, downstate, but we've only got roughly about 10 people per square mile. So it's kind of a remote area. Property tax, just to let you know what we're faced with here. We've only 17% of our property actually gets taxed. So the county relies an awful lot on tourism. The reason we can't tax is we've got a large Indian reservation or tribal land, state forest land, commercial forest land, but we are blessed with a tremendous amount of lakes, rivers, trails, highlands, waterfalls, and it's just an outdoor paradise. I moved up here about 5 years ago. 6 years ago now. I love it. So a little bit more about Breakout County. We've got the highest point in Michigan and highest natural point. It's called Mount Arvon. We've got probably the best lake trout and salmon fishing in the state. Just miles and miles of Lake Superior shoreline and commercial forests. So it's kind of cool. The picture on the right-hand side there is actually a picture from Mount Arvon. You can see Lake Superior off in the distance. So this is kind of the environment that we're dealing with up here. With only 9,000 people, as you can imagine, if we draw 100 tourists, that's almost 1% of our population. You get 1,000 people, that's 10%. When I was talking to Megan when we were setting up, she talked about a blueberry festival drawing in 50,000 people. My head just went round and round. I can't imagine 50,000 people, but we don't have that. Your city is downstate. A little village downstate would have the same amount of people as our county. COVID hit. So with COVID, obviously that eliminated large crowds. It banned boating. We rely a lot on boating because of the lake. Campgrounds closed, mandated social distancing. So it forced the cancellation of almost every major event and festival that we had in the county. Being on a Chamber of Commerce, I took objection to that and said, my God, we're here to try to grow businesses and bring people in and help the restaurants and the hotels and that type of thing. And we are closing everything down. Give you an idea of the type of festivals that we have up here. We've got a Lake Trout Festival. That's a big draw. We've got the Aura Music Festival. It's called the Jamboree. The powwow at the reservation, Lakefront Beer Festival, Lumberjack Days. They all involve a lot of people in close quarters. They don't lend themselves to COVID. So every one of those was canceled, okay? All the things that we typically did went away. So the challenge was to develop a new event, if you will, that didn't require crowded tents and fairs. It didn't require indoor gathering. It could be done outside. We really wanted to attract tourists, and being it was a new thing, we wanted people to like it and come back. So those were kind of the criteria that we laid out for ourselves. And
there for a second. So there it is. They defined very specifically what they were working towards, and not just how can we change, but here's what we can work with, what we can't. This and the next slide.
Okay, so can you see my mouse? Yeah, you can see my mouse. So our population center happens to be this little tiny area around the bay of Lake Superior. It's the Keweenaw Bay. Out here in this large circle, there's nothing. Okay, that's commercial forest land, and it's mostly 2-track roads. It's unpopulated wilderness. It's inaccessible to most vehicles. I mean, if you drive a car, you probably don't want to go up there with your car. There really are no maps. The highest point in Michigan's up there. There is a road that goes there, but once you leave there, there's not much else. There's a lot of streams and rivers and beaver dams. That's what our county is made up of, but there aren't any people there. There's nothing going on there. So what we did is said, let's keep people outdoors as much as we can. Let's keep people separated by 6 feet or more. Let's make sure they don't get lost, and let's make it interesting. To do that, we decided there's a lot of people that like ATVs. we have a lot of waterfalls, and people like to see them. And then there's a lot of people that just like to go outdoors and enjoy the outdoors. So we combined all three into one event and said, let's take them out into this wilderness area and see what they've been missing. Okay. This happens to be one of the gentlemen on the trip. This was actually taken from our event. But it's hard to be in an ATV and be less than 6 feet apart, or be more than six, no, be less than 6 feet apart from the other ATV. Typically, you're about 25 or 100 feet apart. You're surrounded typically by plexiglass, and you're outside. So this exceeded the social distancing mandates of COVID. It wasn't anything that was restricted, so we went for it. Okay. So on the left, we had some initial concerns. I won't read through them here, but the initial concerns came to us and we laid them out, and then we started thinking of additional concerns. One of the major ones, if you look on the right-hand side here, you'll see a map. The green is the route that we took. That's about a 50, 60-mile route. It's going to take us about 9 hours to do that because we're stopping at 10 waterfalls plus Mount Arvon. And there is no real defined trails in a lot of this area. So that's where we started, and we started looking at parking and a manageable size. Everybody's going to have a trailer because they're bringing in their ATV. So we needed to worry about parking. We wanted to limit it to 20 machines, and we did that for a couple of reasons. One was just to have it a manageable size, not lose people, be able to park. And it was our first time ever attempting this. So we didn't want to get ourselves in trouble having 200 machines out there and people getting lost, and it just could have been ugly. So the next thing we worried about was defining the route. We needed some guides. We had a guy at the front and a guy at the back just to keep everybody in line. We have, this is mostly commercial forest land, but it's private land. So we had to get permission from the landholders and make sure that nobody was going to call the sheriff on us and get us into trouble. So we got a hold of the landholders ahead of time, got permission from them. They were actually quite enthused. Oh, hang on a second. I have lost. Okay. Can see me? We're still good? I had lost stuff on my screen.
Still here and see the screen okay. We've got up to the permission bullet point.
Okay. So we got permission from the landholders. Next, we decided to have an entry fee. We had some expenses that we had to take care of. We didn't want to get rich off of it, but you have machines that will only hold one person. You can have a machine that holds two, or you can have a machine that holds 4 people. And we thought, it might be nice just to have a per machine price and then a per passenger price on top of that. So that's how we handled that. Advertising and registration. So we advertised through social media, through our Chamber of Commerce event. We also decided to do a pre-registration, which was done online. That was done for a couple reasons. One, so that we could limit the number of people to 20 machines. And 2, we wanted to capture the names of those people that were attending, not only their names, but their contact information, so we can go back to them in future years with another event or the same type of event, anything we want. At least we've captured their names and their email and their telephone and address, all of that. When we started doing this, we had a lot of local people that said, oh my gosh, I've never been out there. And so when they would register, we'd tell them, look, we're really trying to attract tourists because we're dying here. We have no events going on. And they said, oh, we understand. We'll do it another time. So there was no real adversity or problems with that. The locals wanted to see it occur as well. 9 hours. And it was somebody we were sure would need a bathroom break. So we have a CVB Convention Visitors Bureau parking lot, which is quite large. And that's where we had everybody meet and park. While the CVB building was closed, we do have a bathroom there, so we allowed people to use the bathroom. They used it at the beginning, and when we returned, they used it again. In between, while we were going, there was 2 deer camps that have outhouses, so we utilized those. So we actually had four places. We could use a little bit more than that, but that worked out. We developed safety rules and trail rules, trying to keep everybody safe. They're driving machines, so we requested there was no alcohol allowed, that type of thing. Legal liability, that was something that we're concerned about. So we went around and checked to see what other events did in that format, because there are other ATV events out there. And we got liability waivers. And in order to attend, everyone had to sign a liability waiver. Meals, again, COVID was a concern. So we asked that everybody bring their own meal. We were not supplying it. So meals and drinks, everybody supplied on their own. Awards, we wanted to have some awards that we gave out. So we had 2 things. One is the sticker you see up above here. That sticker is a sticker, that decal that they could put on their ATV when they finished. We also had coupons from local businesses, restaurants, and the like, that people could use, and it would help our businesses out. The other thing we did was a giveaway. It was a Michigan Waterfalls book. You can see it up here. It's very well done. I want to say it's about 300 pages, and it gives locations and everything, but still, you're not going to find it without a guide. So last thing was feedback. We wanted to get feedback. We had the contact info from the people because they registered, and we contacted everybody afterwards, thanking them for coming to the event and also asking for feedback. Good news on all this was everybody survived. Okay. That was a concern. We had one incident. It was me, and I took a tumble, and I happened to take out our photographer in the process. But things happen. Nobody got hurt. Nobody got injured, and it was a great trip. The feedback that we got was tremendous. We did not really get any bad feedback. We got some comments as to how we could probably improve it. Most of the people said they've never been on a better ATV event in their life. They were just thrilled. I was so happy with that. One of the things they enjoyed the most is that they were unimproved trails. So if you can imagine a railroad grade that is maybe 100 years old, and there's no more tracks there. There's nothing there, but there's saplings growing up. There's trees overhanging that you've got to push out of the way. They loved it. I was concerned about that, but it worked out. One of the things that we all worry about at an event is how do we know if it's successful or if we're doing the right thing? And at the start of this, we put it on our website in late June, and we anticipated its thing to grow, and we're hoping we'd get the 20 machines. Well, we sold out, I think, the second week of July. It was done. And so we were turning people away. We created a waiting list, and we ended up with 52 participants, not the 50,000 that I heard about at the Blueberry Fest, but 52 was great for us. Only 4 of the people were local. So as I said, the local people tended to understand and participate with us as well. They left with advertisement on their ATV. This little decal that we talked about earlier, they stick it on their ATV. So other events they go to or other people they ride with go, oh, what is this? You survived the barricade. What is that? So it's a way to attract additional people to come to our event the next time. I think just about everybody that was at our event plans to return. They've asked to return. Again, we've got their contact information, so we can contact them for any event we want to in the future. Thank you very much. That's what we did. Megan, you want to jump in?
Just point out how great, how the use of the, I don't know if it was you or who on the team thought through all those concerns, but that is a great example of really letting that critic personality shine and help create a very well thought through planned event, which is really key, especially during COVID times. So I would say we can go to questions. If anyone has any questions, why don't you shoot them in the chat, or you can ask to be invited in over here. Maybe our moderator will let your video on if you really want to be. We don't have the free McDonald's coffee in the hall this time. That's usually where I am about this time of day. Maybe while people are thinking up something, I would ask, you hinted at the end, Burt, about really getting the local businesses involved. Can you talk a little bit more about how you did that for this event and what the response was?
Sure. We're a small community, so basically went door to door to businesses, local businesses, restaurants primarily, and said, hey, would you like to participate in any way, shape, or form? And I would recommend maybe a coupon that we passed out during the event. We passed them out at lunch, and people did, the restaurants did participate. Not all of them, but some of them participated and said, yeah, we'd like to do that. The one in particular said, hey, I'll offer $1 off on any fish dinner. And they have several fish dinners. Nice. That's the restaurant I happened to go to. I went in there and there was 4 different tables. There was about 10 people from the event that were in there. So it did work. It drew people in that otherwise may not have gone in, may not have even known that the restaurant was there. The other thing that I didn't talk about is next year. We talked amongst ourselves and said this was, for our little community, this was a success. And how do we make it bigger? Okay. And so next year, one of the things we're talking about doing is maybe having back-to-back events. So maybe we do the same thing, but we start at 8 o'clock. Another group goes out at 9 o'clock, and a third group goes out at 10 o'clock. We could still have a similar size event, but we could have, instead of having just 20 people, now we could have 60 people. We could do it on multiple weekends. But this was kind of our, well, it wasn't kind of, it was our first attempt at this. And you're a little nervous at the beginning to make sure it all is going to go off well. It did. So we're ready to step it up a little bit.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well,
any other questions from anybody?
Type them away. I think we're probably good to close off then.
Okay, thank you everyone for attending.
Thank you, Burt.
Bye-bye.
Bye.